Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at itsJessino. We signed someone else. We have 2 signings now. Yay. So yeah, you guys, earlier today, it was announced that, Lokonga is official Arsenal player. We all knew about it, but it's nice to see it on the website and know that it's completely finished, and then we can just go ahead and move on to the next signing. And so we're kind of going to get our reactions to it, kind of talk about what Arteta said about the player, that kind of stuff. How does he play? So we'll kind of go back and talk about the player profile a little bit, and also talk about when will he play. I think there's maybe a little bit of disappointment because we know that he's not a first team player. He's not going to be starting games, but we'll kind of talk about when we think he'll kind of show up for us. And I do think that he'll play a important role this coming season, especially when rotating with Thomas. And we'll talk a little bit about the project. I think we can maybe all come to an agreement that there is some sort of project here, and we'll kind of talk about what we think that is. And then, of course, we'll round it out with Sergino Dest, our links with him, the American right back that currently plays for Barcelona, they are in massive financial problems. Do I think they're going to give us their good players? No. Do I think that we'll, search their bin a little bit and find one of their leftovers? Probably. So we'll see what happens with that. And then, of course, we'll do Q&A before we end the show. There's about 66 of you guys watching right now, actually 70 of you guys watching right now. So make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And bring the gang. We have George here and Harry. Hey, guys.
Hello, hello.
How's it going?
Good. So just to let you guys know, before we get into everything, Harry was so rude, before we actually started. We don't know what squash is. I've never heard of that drink in my whole life. And cordial. Yeah, so now people are saying what it is. I've literally never heard of it before. So you guys let us know in the chat box if you know what that is. What squash is. Do you like it or not? I think it's the equivalent to Kool-Aid here, but it's just in liquid form. But yeah, Harry was making it seem like we were weird that we didn't know about it. So let us know if you know about it and if you like it. Yeah, see, there's people saying that
Americas, it's a vegetable, guys. It's not.
Because I was saying it in the chat, and people are like, I like it, when it's sautéed or whatever, and I'm like, see, it's squash means something different, over here, what I mean?
It's also a sport, right? It's a sport, but do you guys?
It is a sport as well.
Racquetball or something instead, right?
We do.
Okay, we call it squash.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I still this kind of reminds me of video that I want to do at some point, but it probably doesn't make sense to do it now because I'm just going to say it anyway. There's so many people that blame Americans for soccer, like saying that it's soccer, like literally it was called soccer before, like in Scotland and stuff, and even in England, they called it soccer. Like it wasn't us. Like we didn't take it and then say we're going to rename it something else. Like it was always soccer, and then you guys changed it to football. So like, yeah, like
I did not know that.
I'm serious. I'm so serious.
I did not know that.
There's so many people that are like, yeah, those Americans, they just took it, and instead of calling it football, they decided to call it soccer. It was always called soccer, like literally from the beginning. So there you go. No need to do the video now. We'll just clip it and just
learn something new every day. Soccer was the original word. Squash is not a vegetable. We're already learning.
That's it. End the show now. What more have we got to talk about?
I swear we're serious people, you guys. So let's do this. Sambi, that's what he wants to be called. He said that, like, you can call him Albert or Sambi, but on the back of the shirt, he'll be Sambi. He took the number 23, which is amazing, obviously, for obvious reasons. So joined us from Anderlecht on a long-term contract. It's Chris Wheatley said it's a 4-year deal with an option for another one, I think. So he's here for a long time. He's 21 years old. Again, came from Anderlecht, and he's on the fringes of the Belgian national team, the full team. So he just missed out on being in the Euro squad, which is kind of impressive when you consider the players that are in that team. Arteta pretty much used his connections with Vincent Kompany to make this deal happen. And Thierry Henry is also, an assistant coach for Belgium. So between Vincent Kompany and Thierry Henry, like Sambi has good recommendations from people that I think we can all say that we trust. Edu said, we're delighted that Albert has signed with us, and there was a lot of interest in him, and he was a big target. Albert is a player we've been tracking for some time, and he will bring us strength and depth in the center of the midfield. We look forward to his continued development with us. And it's just so funny because I think there is this maybe like an underlying kind of narrative going around that we're just kind of like flying by the seat of their pants, and there's no plan, and we're just kind of like going out and signing whoever. But clearly we've been scouting him for a while, and there's also like the thought that we don't have scouts, and I don't think that was ever the case, so I think it's important that we kind of remember that, like, not everything you hear is true, and like just because we don't know what's happening doesn't mean that they're just because you're not privy to something doesn't mean that there's not good things happening behind the scenes. I think that this is a deal that makes a lot of sense, but George, what do you think about, the fact that we've been scouting him for a long time, and does that give you some maybe confidence in the direction in which our recruitment is going? This is completely different than the recruitment that we've kind of done, recently.
Well, I think we do this as fans, and to be honest with you, I really think that the whole journalist brigade do this where they look at a signing and they try to draw the comparisons in terms of narrative. So, Thierry Henry, he was at the Belgium squad. I don't know how much, recommendations, are made from secondhand accounts in that aspect. I really do think this screams like a data-driven move. I said it earlier in the day that this is a pre-planned, smart move. It had nothing to do with chance or a spot recommendation, because when you look at it, his numbers and profile match identically to Thomas Partey. And then when you start looking at in terms of their playing style and their qualities, you just start seeing an immense forward planning in terms of how does, an under 23 kind of player with leadership qualities who can take over from Thomas work. Because you know what, I think the one thing I want to highlight really is that we finally seem to be protecting our assets. I had like a lot of debates earlier today in terms of what do these signings actually do in terms of moving the needle. And in my mind, making sure that you secure squad depth to ensure that Arsenal are playing a specific way for the entirety of this season is important, and is what cost us last season. If you look between Tierney injuries, if you look between Thomas Partey not being able to play consistently, having a way of playing for us that's maintained throughout the entirety of the season is absolutely vital to making sure that we max out points. I don't think it moves the needle from changing our perception anytime from, struggling European contenders to title challengers, but it absolutely makes the difference greater than just 4 or 6 points. I can probably count, 12 points off the top of my head that we lost from injuries related to not being able to field our first team members. And so for me, it's absolutely vital that we do something like this. And from a scouting perspective, really, we've kind of touched on it before, this idea that we sacked all the scouts and then no longer had a scouting department was really quite ridiculous. Look, we just did the exact same process with the academy. We used Nolan Partners, which was the law firm infrastructure that we used to really hire a lot of the head of operations at the academy. We're doing the same here. And signings like Tavares and, Lokonga is all the proof that you need. If you don't buy what we're taking from an inference about us not having scouting, I really doubt that, Mikel has elite knowledge that's picking up, a Portuguese left back who did quite well in Benfica, or even, Lokonga, who did quite well in the Belgium league, but then just suddenly happened to find great data finds. I don't think that's coincidence. And I think it's disingenuous to suggest otherwise. So I see these signings as evidence that, our scouting department has been streamlined to good effect, and not only good effect, but great effect. You see the evidence in these signings. So yeah, for me, I love it. I love what Lokonga is. And, that interview, it spoke volumes for me. I love him as a playing style, but what you get mentally from that interview is actually quite a lot for me. And I think people might dismiss it, but I don't, especially how he's handled himself and how he wants to be perceived, both in terms of his own quality, which he said, let my talking on the pitch really happen. I love that. I think that's an understated quality that not many of our new signings have really taken on board. So yeah, I'm just ecstatic with it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I just feel I think there's a lot of distrust. So when you hear that we're sacking like all of the scouts, the first thing that you think is like, wow, so we're not going to get good players. Like, it goes quickly from, one thing to the other. But I think Arsenal want to come into this modern way of recruitment, and that means that you have to kind of shake things up. So I'm actually shocked that we've been able to identify this level of player so quickly in a transitional year in terms of what we do as a team and like as a club in recruitment. So it's really interesting. But Mikel Arteta said Albert is a very intelligent player who has shown great maturity in his performances during his development. He has been coached well by Vincent Kompany and his team at Anderlecht. I know Vincent very well, and he talks very highly about Albert and the positive impact he had to Anderlecht in recent seasons. We're confident Albert's ready for the next stage in his development, and we're looking forward to welcoming a new member to the squad with his quality and presence. Another thing that I'm noticing is that a lot of the targets that we're looking at are maybe they're more leaders and players that really stand up and are key members of their squads. Lokonga is the captain of Anderlecht at 21 years old. Harry, is that something that you are happy that we're looking for, as players that can kind of stand up and be counted, people that can be relied upon, even if he's 21 years old? It's something that he's done before. Is that something that you're excited to see maybe us expound upon later with other signings as well, more leaders in the squad that desperately kind of needs it?
Yeah, I think at that age, if you're given the captaincy of your club, it obviously shows that you've got good leadership attributes. Sometimes players are given captains because of their ability or just because they're the biggest name in the squad. But at that age, when you're that young, it's clearly because he's got those leadership traits and that personality. Just in general, I think it's a really good signing to have someone young and hungry who wants to challenge himself. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of him, just the YouTube videos and whatnot, but he does look like he's really progressive. It looks like he's got a great pass on him, really comfortable at switching at the play. Looks like he's also enjoys taking players on and standing them up in the middle of the pitch and trying to skip past around them. Kind of Pogba-esque without taking the comparisons too far. But yeah, I just think it's really good for us to up the standard in central midfield. And whilst I don't want to say he's not going to feature heavily because we don't know who else we're going to bring in, but I can see someone like perhaps El Neni featuring a lot more. But then as soon as Lokonga comes on in his first game, he impresses and he kind of takes that role as third choice central midfielder next to Thomas Partey. So yeah, I mean, good signs and good to get the business done. And like you say, just because we're not privy to all the information doesn't mean Edu is dilly-dallying, as I've heard quite a lot of people say. Doesn't mean we're not working hard on signing players and making this club better and taking us back to where we should be. I don't think Arteta and Edu are in this game for money or for fun. they're in it to make us to make us great again, and they're going to be working their socks off to make sure that we are signing the players who are available to us at decent fees, whilst also getting the most that we can for Granit Xhaka and Maitland-Niles and Nketiah. And if we can't get the most for those players, then they'll extend their contracts. They'll send them out on loan to make sure we get the most in the future. So, yeah, good to get the business done. 2 signings down and hopefully 3 or 4 more to come in.
100%. There's 115 of you guys watching. Make sure you like the video. We're going to talk about the profile a little bit more now. Obviously, I think we have done a show on this, but we'll just kind of go over it again. Now there's more information out there about what kind of player this is, and I think because I don't think any of us really watch, the Belgium league like on a weekly basis or anything like that. So right now we have to kind of just go by the information that's kind of being given to us. But George, when you look at this, like his and this is from Scott. He's a part of the Arsenal Vision crew, and he does a lot of really awesome stats. His Twitter name is O_that_crab if you want to see more of his stuff. But George, when you look at this, what do you feel like are Sambi's strengths and weaknesses? Like, what can we look forward to from a player profile, with Sambi?
I see a mini Thomas Partey. Sometimes, when I look at his, play style, he reminds me of Alex Song. So what you're going to really get with him is somebody that's absolutely elite on the half turn, but has his head up when he's dribbling, and he plays forward all the time. He always wants to, ensure that you're progressing the play at every opportunity. He's not afraid, as Harry said, to take on players or stand them up in midfield, but he's also not afraid to do that in his own half, in his own box. And so what you're going to get is somebody that is very effective 2 ways. He's got that really great 5-yard burst bingo that I love in terms of, going far. The one maybe thing that I would critique, though, is I do find that when he's in defensive transition, he does struggle a little bit and doesn't carry the same intensity. You can kind of see that even in YouTube clips when he does get the wrong side of him. He tries to use his, legs in a way to snatch the ball, very similar to what you might see from some of your Conte-esque kind of style, but he isn't one to really aggressively run with you and to tackle you with the ball. So for me, that's something that he might have to work on. But in terms of just his profile, what you can immediately see, though, is even though he's got a great passing range, I think he struggles long passing, essentially. It's not something that he doesn't have, but it's just he needs to work on his technique a little bit more in that. But he definitely prefers those on the ground kind of through ball passes between the lines. And, that's something very, very much that, Thomas has done. I really want him to increase his intensity going the other way, though. And so I do see him very much in the mold of a Thomas Partey understudy. But again, we seem to be making these bets, though, in terms of even Tavares. I don't think he's quite there positionally and even going the other way. But we seem to be doing this because I feel that Mikel trusts his ability as a coach to, work on these things. And to be fair, like, he's great at it. I mean, he's got evidence for doing it. So in, Sambi, I think what we will find is I just hope people don't expect the finished article. He is really quite raw. Some of the on-the-ball things that he does are absolutely elite. Like, they're very Soumare-esque in, on-the-ball progressions. And so if you're a Soumare fan like me, like, you're going to get very excited. And, it actually makes sense because I don't know if people know, but, Luis Campos recommended, Sambi to Lille prior to his departure in order to replace Soumare. And, when you look at these stats, but you look at his style of play, it makes really quite a lot of sense. And it's because, his ability on the half turn and to keep his head up and play between the lines are exactly what, Soumare provided. And, also he's got like these co-signs, if you will, from Atlanta recruitment team down in Serie A, who, by the way, like, when you start looking at who has really wanted, Sambi, it starts to get exciting because these are all teams that are forward thinking in terms of, data scouting, but also profiles. They really do quite well. But again, a lot of the things that he does well, you can't, really teach as a coach. So you start to get excited because, look, positioning and intensity both ways, I can teach that to a player. And, he displays that intensity going forward. You just need to get the same desire going the other way. So it's not like he doesn't have that physical ability. And again, I think I would most likely kind of compare him really to Alex Song And if anybody remembers Alex Song, very similar, didn't start out the most positionally adept player, which we did work on to improve quite a bit.
He grew into it over time.
Yeah, exactly. But he was just excellent at those between the line passes. Like, he always kept his head up, and he was absolutely elite on the half turn and could receive really in any space. And again, that's kind of the crux of any Premier League, midfielder. So he's really so smooth on it. And yeah, I'm just very excited that we, again, have been proactive. Like, when's the last time that we took one of our biggest assets who was prime aged and got him a youngster to really compete and have an understudy in? Thomas Partey, I love him, but he's 28. Having this, Lokonga, where in 1 or 2 years we're going to be like, I don't know, we might look for a replacement already secured and already bedded in the team, is just awesome planning for me. So yeah, I'm really, really excited by this. And, I think he's got qualities, that we're missing right now, but also for the present, he can really grow into this role in the future really quite well. So yeah, I'm ecstatic.
Yeah, he's one of those where I think it's more difficult to teach. Like, I think you have a decent, like, passing ranges and things like that are things that you can tweak and make better. But if you don't actually have that skill set, it's hard to teach. Whereas defensive positioning and making sure that you're switched on is more of something that can be coached into you. He already has, like, look at his progressive passing stats. Like, he's already there in terms of what he can do on the ball. He just needs to be coached a little bit. So yeah, I definitely think he's raw. He did say in his video that people say that he's better as a 6, like, instead of box to box. But I think and Jamal asked, like, do you think that he's a DM or a box to box? And I think it's kind of interesting because modern DMs have to be able to pass as well. I think we're seeing less specialists, like even Conte over time, like, improved his passing range and his progression and things like that. Like, he has improved on that. Whereas I think when he kind of first came on the scene, he was a lot more of a nippy destroyer type. So I think the fact that he already has the ability to play box to box, but eventually maybe in his career, he'll be more of a sitter. He won't be such a specialist that you're kind of looking at him like, wow, you need to bring in a passer to kind of to add that into the team. Like, Harry, do you kind of agree with that a little bit, that we need more well-rounded people that we could maybe just fine tune a little bit than specialists like we've seen in the past with, like, we have a lot of specialists like Aubameyang, Granit Xhaka. Like, these are players that are pretty specific. Would you like to see more well-rounded players like Sambi?
Yeah, I would. And even on the clips I've watched, he seems comfortable when he's picking up the ball in wider areas. He seems to have a little bit more movement and legs across the pitch. So I think it's a case of making sure that we bring in these players that, like you say, aren't just one dimensional. If we're to compare him to someone like Mohamed Elneny, we know Elneny's limitations. He comes on when 15 minutes to go, he'll run around, give you some energy and keep the ball ticking over. But there's a hesitancy in his play, which is almost unforgivable at times because it really limits your attacking play. So I think it's about bringing in players who change the dimension of our team a little bit as well. So when you're bringing on someone like Elneny, you're not limiting yourself to what you can do on the pitch. So for me, it's a really good sign that Arteta is just making improvements in the areas that are so key. Thomas Partey and Lokonga in a space of a year is brilliant business and something that I don't think we would have previously seen. We were calling out for a replacement for Vieira for a long time. We got Thomas Partey, and now it looks like we're already signing perhaps Thomas Partey's replacement. So that is what you call really proactive forward thinking. So fair play to Edu and Arteta.
When do you guys see him playing? That's I think a huge question. Like, do you think we'll see him? Do you think Arteta will trust him in early Carabao Cup, FA? Arteta's I think he's a little tight when it comes to introducing people into the first team and stuff like that, So do you guys think, how much do you think we're going to see Sambi play, this coming season?
I think we'll see a fair bit of him, to be honest. A lot of it will depend on the business that we do. Assuming Granit Xhaka leaves, there'll obviously be a centre midfielder with more experience coming in, hopefully. But regardless of that, I think we'll probably see a fair bit of him. I think potentially if we don't get another centre midfielder straight away, maybe you'll see Elneny start the first game against Brentford. But I can see Lokonga featuring. I don't think Arteta is hesitant to play to play kids at all. He just needs to be able to trust them. And I think if Lokonga impresses early doors, I could see him featuring heavily. I think it all depends on ability and personality. I know there's perhaps a myth or a stigma associated to Arteta and not trusting kids, but I think if you're good enough, he will play you. I know centre midfield is such a vital position, so it might take a little bit of time for the transition to happen, but it obviously depends on incomings as well. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Lokonga maybe come off the bench against Brentford and feature in a few cameo performances and maybe start the fifth or sixth game. But like I say, all depending on who else we sign.
Yeah, and there's like a little rumor going around that he may get loaned out. I just can't see it. You know what I mean? Like, we have no midfield. Like, you know what I mean? He's not getting loaned out, but George, what do you think about Aziz now that Lokonga has come in? And you've already kind of said that they're quite similar. Do you think that this kind of spells like, maybe Aziz going out on a loan? Or do you think he'll stay in the under 23s? Personally, I think that's a waste of him at this point. I think he's beyond the under 23s. I think he could easily go out on a good loan and get some experience. But what do you think? Like, you're a huge advocate of the youth setup in the academy. And if Lokonga and Aziz are quite similar, do you actually see them in the first team together?
I mean, we're going to have to. So this was my real only kind of pushback to the deal. And, Aziz is actually kind of injured. I don't know if people know right now. So I actually think it's unlikely that he'll get a loan. And so that would have scuppered kind of any chances of him getting first team football, really. Look, I'm really curious what this means further forward. I think having Lokonga bought, what it does is it maybe changes your perception about what Aziz will be like in the future. And I think that does mean that, you are looking at Aziz actually a little bit deeper, because what I find with, Sambi at least is it's not just the positioning. For me, defensive intensity, while you can teach some of these things, those instincts are very rarely gone from a player perspective. And so to have that kind of in the first phase is really, really difficult, and I believe that, Aziz is just a little bit more positionally aware. Even in his short appearances right now, I see him scanning a lot more than really I did in some of the few clips with, Lokonga. And that's not to say that he doesn't do it. He does do this. But when you're looking at players and how maybe somebody can, align together, fundamentally, when you look at Aziz and Lokonga, they have a lot of traits that are very similar. The reason I prefer Aziz a little bit ahead is because I've seen a little bit more output in the final third and a little bit more evidence of that. And so between the two, maybe he does sit. But again, I think we're really nitpicky with this in terms of FIFA formations about who has to sit, who has to go ahead. I really feel as though, you get the best out of somebody like a Thomas Partey or a Lokonga with somebody behind them, that they don't have to focus on defensive transitions as well as being the progressor, because their ability on the ball is so great that you want them to really just be focused on that. And so in that case, I feel like with a future Aziz partnership, you'd have one of the two sit and the other one's going to go ahead. But again, it's not as strict that they always do that from each other. They're going to work out between the two, to share those responsibilities. I just think that, Aziz right now, he's kind of injured at an unlucky time, because he was definitely able to kind of make a name for himself in preseason. He would have been one of the first, names on the team sheet coming into Scotland and to America, I'm sure. I just think he might have a Willock situation where we'll keep him in the under 23s while he does nurse this injury. Nothing serious, but it will keep him out for a month. And I think that he may go out on loan kind of in January if we do see that as an option. But again, I think people are forgetting we've lost a lot of midfielders. I don't think we're looking at Lucas Torreira, Matteo Guendouzi coming in, having lost Ceballos and, Odegaard. That's already, 4 people kind of within the midfield that, are going to be gone. And I know people cite AFCON, but really that's only 4 games, 5 maximum. That's not even the length of a decent injury. So I don't think it's that much of an issue. It's just, I think Lokonga is going to get a cameo role. I really don't. I think he's a great prospect, but I do feel as though people are putting a little bit more expectation on him as starters and such. I see him really ready to compete in 1, maybe 2 years personally. I want him as cameo appearances. I think he could do a job in a couple minutes, but I wouldn't trust him, for example, starting 15 league games a season. I don't think I would feel comfortable with him doing that personally. I see almost the 2018 Saka development with Emery, where he got a couple cameo appearances there. He had the odd start, but it never exceeded over 10 league games in the season. So, yeah, I do struggle with it, though. I mean, I did say I love Aziz. I think he is a little bit more complete in a sense that he could be a lot more. I think it's very clear that I see Lokonga as a little bit more of a second phase midfielder, while Aziz, I've seen him output at the 10. Like, he truly is so malleable. So these are never like kind of, strict, evaluations in someone so young. But yeah, I do worry about that. It's a valid concern because I had that coming in.
I remember. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it, Thomas, El Neni, and Lokonga. That's pretty much it for the deep lying, more pivot players. So it's a little worrisome, just a little bit for me, just a tiny bit. I know we'll bring in somebody to replace Granite, and it's going to be really interesting to see what that player looks like, because I think that'll kind of tell us who we're going to be, in the next couple of seasons. But yeah, so overall, really good signing. I think we got him for like less than 20 million or something like that, like really good. Long-term contract, very highly regarded, very similar to Thomas. So for me, I'd rate it as like an 8 right off the bat. I know he's not going to be perfect, but just from a deal perspective and filling the profile, I think it's going to be good. A lot of people said 8. People seem quite excited about this signing, more excited than Tavares. Not quite sure why, but it seems like there's a lot more like love for this one. So we'll see how it pans out. But Tavares, White, Lokonga's 21, Tavares is 21, Ben White is 23, Saka and ESR 21, 20 years old. Like, it's this project youth, isn't it? It really, really is, and I think when you think about how we end the season and we're in 8th place and we're thinking, how are we going to recruit players? I think instantly probably the idea was, well, let's go for younger players because they'd probably be more likely to want to come to Arsenal, at the beginning of their career. You get very highly regarded young players and mix them in with the players that we already have. And you have an exciting youth project going on, George, or actually let's go to Harry on this one. What do you say to people that are still saying there is no project, there is no process, when clearly you can kind of see the thought process is project youth and get very highly regarded young players in and around this first team squad?
Respectfully, I'd say open your eyes, have a look what's going on. I mean, I was talking to you guys maybe after the season ended, and I was all for getting experiencing players in because that's what I thought we needed. But obviously, I suppose the proven experienced players that we would want essentially won't come to us, or we couldn't afford them, or there's projects more appealing to the likes of Sergio Ramos and whatnot, even though that's not the sort of player we should go for, but experienced pros might not want to come to us. So obviously they are looking at younger players, athletic players, and with regards to the process, or trust the process or the project, I mean, it's plain to see what we're doing. We've made sure that we secure the long-term future of some of our key young players. ESR, fingers crossed, pending. We are building a team around young players. We are giving young players who have got the right attitude and mentality a chance, i.e. Martinelli, Saka, ESR, and the guys who aren't showing enough desire, whether it's Mustafi or Maitland-Niles or Reece Nelson, they're slowly being faded out. So I think the project and process is really clear to see. I think because of the pandemic, it's changed how we had to operate for a little while. And like Arteta said, in normal circumstances, the project would have been a little bit quicker. But once everything returns to normal, it should go boom. And I think we're slowly and surely seeing that. And I get there's a frustration around the lack of business or it not being done straight away. But I mean, I've never concluded a transfer deal before. I'm pretty sure it's complicated. So I'm not going to, make too many accusations on people not working hard enough. But there's definitely a project and definitely a process in place, 100%. And Arteta wouldn't come to Arsenal without knowing he would be backed. And also, he's not going to come to Arsenal and just sit there and go, okay, cool, don't worry about it. I'll just wait for you guys to give me some money. It's his reputation on the line as well, his livelihood. He doesn't work probably 17, 18 hours a day, every single day of his life, just to get no's or be a yes man, as he's been accused of. So there's definitely a project and process. And if you can't see it, I would just say, look a little bit deeper, put down the agendas and narratives, and enjoy the good times, because then we can enjoy it all together, guilt-free, right? You can't criticize something the whole way and then really want to enjoy it like you haven't been negative or you haven't tried to bring it down. So let's be positive together and we can achieve wonderful things.
Hi, Souls.
Hi, Jess. You all right? How's everyone?
I'm good. I do have a question for you, but we do have a super chat here. I ship myself, says Sambi will prove to be a great signing. I got that, didn't I?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh my goodness, rookie mistake.
Oh my gosh. I was like, as soon as I said it, I was like, wait. Okay.
When I was reading it, I was like, yeah, it doesn't sound any.
Oh, you got me.
Yes.
Sammy will prove to
Well
be
done,
a great
son.
signing. Thank you so much for your super chat. Okay. So we're kind of talking about this clear, youth project that's happening here at Arsenal. It's like very obvious, but we were kind of talking about like kind of in our group chat today about, so let's just kind of talk about how like I think we can get caught up in certain youth players. Like, let's just call it what it is. Saliba and Guendouzi aren't really working out, or they're not at Arsenal right now. And we have other youth players, but people are kind of trying to say like Arteta doesn't like young players, this just obvious things that aren't true. What do you think about like just the insistence on trying to pin a narrative on Arteta that's not quite true? And then kind of the article that we saw today about Sampoli, I think he is, at Marseille, kind of backing up Arteta's evaluation of Saliba and how that's gone completely under the radar and people are really trying not to talk about it. You can kind of tell that people are like, oh, I didn't see it. What do you think about that, Souls?
It's always tough, I've always said our fan base is full of agendas. I'm starting to question whether they support Arsenal or is it Agenda FC. It's like they want to be right. They don't care about how the club is doing as long as you can call it an opinion, but I just think it's a narrative. It's a thing that they want to. They've made self-belief of, and it's annoying, should I say, because it's like I just want success for Arsenal. And if I see the way, obviously, when we have these discussions on the panel, it's not that we can make something happen, but it's just how we want to see it happen. And everyone has their own sort of thoughts and processes that they want to see Arsenal go through. But to be honest with you, I don't think people realized what a rebuild actually consists of when the whole Wenger out movement happened. I don't think they were ready for it. I think people expected a sort of a year turnaround or an overnight success to happen, and that's not the case. We knew that the squad that we were left with Wenger was a failing squad. It was something which Wenger, like, he's a brilliant Premier League proven manager to get that to consistently top four. But for him to also come out and be, finishing sixth in his final season shows you how much he was overachieving most seasons with that squad. And or did you get baited again or something? Or
just keep going.
Yeah. So
Harry's out of control.
So yeah, no, I was just like, so yeah, no, I do agree with that. I think people, you know what it is? I think people had a narrative before he joined Arsenal and they stuck to it. It was always, he's young, he's inexperienced, he's this, he's that. There was already a sort of a prejudice sort of mindset built towards him, and people just wanted to stick to that narrative. And I think in a way, for some reason at Arsenal, it seems like if you're a negative fan or you portray the club in a negative way, it's the popular thing to do. And it seems to be this sort of trend that's being set. And it is kind of annoying. It is what it is. Because people are like, well, Emery didn't get this backing. Well, Emery lost the dressing room. How do you give time to a manager who simply does not have his dressing room intact? Arteta, so far from what it looks like anyways, hasn't lost the dressing room, and he still has respect of at least the core members of the dressing room. So you can sit there and you can have all your arguments, but at the end of the day, has Saliba explicitly come out and said, Arteta's ruining my career? No. He's actually not even spoken badly about the club. He's not really spoken. Not Guendouzi has, but then again, I think that's just his attitude towards the club anyway. And Whereas Saliba, he seems happy. He doesn't seem upset. He doesn't seem to have any sort of animosity towards Arteta or the club. So I think that's when you need to look at it and think, actually, do you know what? Maybe he's doing the right thing. If Marseille are coming out and saying it, Sampoli's coming out and saying, actually, I do kind of agree with the whole, he's not ready yet, or he's got things to learn. The thing is, I said it to someone earlier today as well. I go, the problem that we have is Saliba with his personal situation. Yes, we can bring it in, or we don't have to, but it's bringing him into an environment which is so toxic, which is such a result. We just want results. We don't care how we get them. That's the fan base we want. We just want the success today, and then we'll worry about tomorrow. Whereas with the whole Arsenal approach is we're worrying about tomorrow, and we're trying to build long-term success rather than just success for today. So, and also what you've also got to think about, I think Saliba's only had 50 or 60 professional games, and you're expecting him to step in and be a number one centre back when we're trying to achieve top four, when we're so underperforming for the stature of Arsenal Football Club. And you're expecting a 19-year-old to put the pressure on his shoulders, where if he makes one mistake, he's going to get absolutely annihilated by the fan base. And that's, everyone can sit here and go, nah, we'll give him time. We've said that about how many players, and how long do they actually give them? Maybe 1 game, 2 games, and then they're on them. And they're like, oh, he's shit, get him out of the club. Why did we spend 27 million pounds on him? Oh, get him back to France and all of this. Like, that's the narrative that will be set. Why did they sign him? Why did they do this? Oh, it's like, I'm going to give you the example, of today's window. People are saying, why did we not go and sign Varane? And why did we go for Ben White? That whole narrative is going to come to Saliba as well. Why did we sign Saliba when we could have signed X, Y, and Z? So I think it's just this fan base has got their agendas and they just want to be proven right rather than wrong. I understand being 8th twice in a row. It's heartbreaking for any Arsenal fan when you're growing up seeing top 4 football, Champions League football, Europe, at least Europe, whatever that stage may be, whether it's Champions League or Europa League, we're always there. We're always amongst the top 6. We're always competing with the top 4. We're not getting battered by them. And I understand that. But we need to also understand that when we wanted Wenger out, and I'm not saying everyone wanted that, by the way, but a large percentage of the active fangoers wanted Wenger out. The stadium was literally Wenger out. You'll probably find the anomaly that wanted Wenger to stay. So that's what I mean. Like, it was literally like a minute, like you could probably count them on your hands. And that's sort of, we then didn't expect, that it was going to take us 6 years, 7 years, despite seeing United go through this. And United, look, have the money. I've always spent the money, when they had the success under Fergie, where they were the highest spending team within the league every time they've had success. And then when we've come into it, we've kind of messed up. But I think the good thing that Arsenal did was have Emery come in first, let him be the sort of, I hate to say it, but the sort of the fall down guy, the guy that's going to take all the fall and the blame. And then the next manager that comes in, he'll be a little bit more sort of eased into the job, which in this case is Arteta. And I think that's their approach and why Arteta was declined the first time around when Emery came in. So, and just on Kim's, by the way, Emery had us in 14th when he left. So that comment is in totally false, because Arteta's one who dragged us to 8th. So that's hence why he got fired. I'm just like firing at Kim's comment there, because a lot of people have that narrative that Emery didn't do bad, but he actually had us quite low in the table before he got sacked. So it's one of those, people are going to have their agendas, I guess, and that's always going to be the case in football. I just think you've got to back the player until they give you no reason to back them. Arteta's done some good stuff. I've seen some football that I like. Once he gets the players in, which seems to be this window, he's more than likely getting most to all his players. I think we're going to be fine.
Yeah, just quickly, without digressing too much, I think Wenger leaving because of the fan hysteria, I think it's given some fans a false sense of authority or a false sense of voice in what we think is best for the club. And respectfully, whilst many people would agree that it was time for Wenger to leave, it hasn't worked out for us. And the reason why it hasn't worked out for us is because the people in charge of the club essentially didn't know who the right man was, and Emery wasn't the right man for Arsenal. And since then, we have gone down. And now hopefully Arteta is the right man for us. But I think it should just be a lesson to us that whilst we can all critique a player and we all have our own perception of what a good footballer is, and we can kind of analyse a player's individual ability, when it comes to the run of a football club, whether it's the transfer dealings, whether it's training processes, the truth is we don't really know what goes on behind the scenes. And whilst we think we have an idea of Wenger should definitely go, blah, 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 if you're Kroenke out for 7, 8, 9, 10 years because they're shit, why would you put the faith in them to replace your greatest ever manager? I mean, and it hasn't worked out. So what I'd say to Arsenal fans is just back Arteta now. And it's not about Emery anymore. I mean, I'm so sick of hearing about
Emery. Why are we still talking about Emery?
Unless we want Emery back, then I don't know. And if you're unhappy that Emery was sacked or the way he was sacked, then I don't know why you want the same for Arteta.
Is upset about Emery. Like, it just, you know what I mean? Like, it's so crazy. But you guys don't spam the chat. Like, what's actually happening there? I'm like looking, don't spam the chat. We're just going to block you. Like, it's actually insane what's going on in the chat box. But there's 200 and something of you guys watching, which I love. So like the video and subscribe to the channel. But before we get off of the subject of just this obvious youth project that we have going on, which is to me quite exciting. Like, I can't wait. What do we need from the more experienced players to make this work? It's all good and well and fine to have a bunch of young, really talented players in and around your team, but they need to be supported, by good, experienced players. Right now, it's like Rob Holding, Bernd Leno, Marie, Thomas, Aubameyang, Lacazette, Willian. That's not really the type of group that I feel like is going to be able to support this young group, so what do we need like from these older guys, like to help these young players thrive? Because again, I'm very apprehensive about having another season of watching Saka and ESR kind of hold us up on their backs. Like, that's just not the way things should go, even in a youth project. You know what I mean? George, what do you think?
I mean, look, fundamentally, I've said it before that experienced players have let us down for the better part of half a decade. And, at the end of the day, for me, I look at profiles over experience. I look at performance on the pitch. And, while ideally you want a conducive environment where you got these mentors that can, show the ropes to these kids are also separately on another level to typical youth. They are kind of in this category where they're well advanced and they're kind of looking forward to this challenge in terms of taking on the mantle. And so for me, it's not so much a worry because I've seen the downplay of experience for the better part of half a decade. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of over it. I'm kind of more worried about raising the floor of a team, regardless of where that goes. I just want fans to be a lot more consistent in their critiques of a club, where in the same token, they want us to kind of recruit young, data-driven, profiled signings, but then critique a Ben White versus a Raphael Varane, and the same breath also complimenting, Leicester's model of recruitment. I find it just hyperbole and just hypocritical to the nth degree, and it's just ridiculous because you've got these self-deprecating fans that believe that, if I'm going to sit there and hammer my own club, it makes me more enlightened towards our development in our path. And no, it just makes you kind of agenda driven at the end of the day, because you need to sit there and kind of critique the club's either ups and downs respectfully. You can't sit there and claim to one side and not recognize some of the differences that we've clearly done in this window. And I just find it really quite boring, to be honest with you, when you then compare those kind of broad debates about a Varane and a Ben White, and then in the same token, they're the same people that are complimenting, oh, Leicester are doing so great. And, you look at us when, they've got maybe a Bertrand and we bought a Tavares. Like, these are very big fundamental differences in how a club might view the philosophy. And if you're going to sit there and critique, you have to be fair. And I don't mind specific instances. Not every club is going to get it right. But to sit there and say, in the last 2 years, I think I'm looking back, you got Martinelli, Saka, ESR pending, Balogun, Keto Taylor-Hart, Arthur Okonkwo. These are all youngsters, by the way, that were potentially leaving that have now signed on to new long-term contracts with the club. That's not something that you can say we've done very effectively since, Wenger has left. And so if you're going to sit there and compare that, A, we don't like youth or we hate youth, and you want to paint us with the same old broad strokes, you need to be fair, because right now I'm really not seeing what you're saying. And to attract those number of players, which, by the way, I cited about 8 examples there in the last 2 years, by the way, this is a short-term change. You have to be fair in terms of what you expect from the club. You know, I really do think that experience, though, in youth needs to be paired correctly. So when I look at like a Thomas Partey, he needed a youth understudy. That made sense to me. It's about buying proper youth with the right environment for a squad development. I don't need maybe experience in the striker department. Like, I see experience. I have it. There I need youth. It's about making sure that you're kind of looking at the squad with a long-term plan that doesn't coincide with same profiles and same zones with, you know, people doing the same jobs. You can't have that. And that works for an experience, by the way. You know, I don't need 2 30-year-old strikers to do the same thing to teach Balogun and Martinelli. I need one, and I need one firing. So I think fundamentally what I need from, you know, people is really just to understand that at some point we are moving forward. And, you know, if you're going to critique the club, just make sure that you're doing it in the context of the greater of the window. Because I'll assure you, if I'm here at the end of the window and all I see are young depth signings, you know, at £20 million, I'm there with you. I'll be frustrated. I'll critique the club and I'll say it's not good enough. But to sit there and say that, you know, these smart, young U23, 6-foot athletic leadership profiles that are data driven is not a good sign or not a step in a good direction is just false. And it is hyperbole. So yeah, I won't swear, I promise. And I've been good.
Do it.
I think it's really easy to get upset during a transfer window that we haven't signed, you know, the key first teamers yet. But obviously the transfer window is still open and players have a right to decide their future. And if we want Basuma or Maddison or Grealish, you know,
who?
Best believe that other clubs would also want him, right? I can't say his name properly.
What's that song? My life be like a woo.
So, but you know what I mean, right? Best believe, you know, we're not going to be the only club that want Basuma, right? There's going to be other clubs that want Basuma. So we have to bide our time. And I think I mentioned this on the space yesterday. Yeah, we could maybe go out and get Neves tomorrow and get that deal done. Or do you wait because Basuma deal might happen, but he's got a few other players to choose or a few other clubs to choose with? And maybe the board are thinking, right, if we're about to sign a replacement for Granit Xhaka, best believe we get the right player because we can't have another, you know, crazy cycle. So it's about just taking your time with those big decisions. And I think we will get a woo, to be honest. I think it's a matter of time. I like a woo. But yeah, just a bit of patience, and like George said, just be consistent with your agendas and your narratives, because we can all make stupid comparisons, but we choose not to. So let's focus on the good, and the good is we signed 2 players. We know Ben White's coming, and we're pretty sure that someone like Awu or Maddison will hopefully be joining. So be positive, and if you can't be positive, just be patient.
Do you know what it is though? This window, we're doing something totally different. Where I wouldn't say we're flirting with players, but we're seriously talking to.
Sorry to interrupt. Can we just get the pronunciation right? Just so
I thought it was Awar.
Oh, that's it. Awar.
Yeah, it's Awar.
Awar.
There you go.
Awar.
Well, it's probably Awu now.
Yeah, I'm from now on. I'm going with Awu. All right. you know when you say something, you go, "Oh, I'm pretty sure I said that wrong." But hopefully, no one's going to notice. But they know.
Yeah, we got the Smith and Awu.
Yeah. Awu. All right. You guys, we have to talk about Dest, because people are like, I thought you guys were going to talk about Dest, and I'm like, I swear we are. I swear. So, being linked with Sergino Dest, USA international right back, young. He's like what, 21 years old. How old is he, Sulz? You know?
Yeah, he's very young. He's probably 21. We'll double check.
Yeah, good player, like very good player. Quick.
He's 21 in November.
Yeah, like I mean, it makes sense to be linked with him because we need a right back, and Barcelona is like in ruin. So it's kind of like, okay, yeah, awesome. I was watching, I think it was like Harry Symeou was saying that this isn't recent. Like, we've been in contact with Barcelona about Sergio Dest since the end of last season. So I think it's a good link, but it kind of now makes me think that we're going in a different direction, or in a direction that I didn't think we're going in. Sergio Dest is very much Hakimi-esque in the way that he plays, in my opinion. I think he's more of a winger than a right back, and I thought we were going to go for like right-sided center back. And I was always kind of thinking like, well, in the back of my mind, I was like, well, maybe this is what Arteta's doing because of the personnel that he has. Maybe he has a different idea. If you look at Sergio Dest, and I'm not sure, like, we also have to take it with a grain of salt, but this is a completely different profile. So, of course, we have differing opinions. We know George would prefer Riddle Baku, and Sergio Dest is not Riddle Baku, so he don't want him as much as he would prefer Baku. But Sulz, you seem kind of like interested in this move if it could happen. He would cost about like 25 million, which is, I think, a good price for somebody with such a high ceiling. And we're also linked with Max Aarons. And although I like Max Aarons, I do think that Sergio Dest has a much higher ceiling, and he could reach that world-class level where I think Max Aarons would just be like a really good right back. So Sulz, for you, is this a move that if it came off, you'd be really excited? And do you have apprehensions about him because he's maybe not that good of a defender?
It's a weird one, because if you watch sort of his development this season, especially with Sergio Roberto being injured for large majorities of the season, you'll start to see actually as the game's gone on, he's gotten better. And I think it is a lack of experience that's really holding it back from his defensive side in terms of positioning, in terms of just knowing when to attack and when to defend. But I feel like what he lacks is something that can be taught and can be sort of adapted to as the more he plays. Obviously, this was his sort of first sort of major season where he's contributed quite largely to, obviously, being at Ajax before this. Coming into Barcelona, he's still got that sort of philosophy, and that's kind of how they play. They want you to be attacking fullbacks in both the systems in Ajax and at Barcelona as well. And I'm quite excited, because I think one of the things that we like heavily is that for people who watch the Premier League and maybe don't watch other leagues as much, the sort of player that he reminisces, or he sort of is like in terms of style, is more of a Trent. If people want to see the Premier League side of him, and he's more attacking. He's got a very, very good attacking ability to him. It is quite phenomenal, because he can make something from nothing. And even the assist that he had to like Messi for one of his goals, incredible. I think even in the Champions League as well. And one of the things that you do notice is he performs even under the pressure. For a 20-year-old, I've seen him in Champions League games and still perform to the level that he has. But it is a...
Is he gone?
We're frozen.
Oh?
Oh?
I don't know what's going on there, but I'm sure he'll come back. But I mean, amazing attacking numbers here. And we have to remember he's playing for Barcelona too. So it's not like he's playing in like some, whatever league, I mean, his attacking numbers are so good, but I just look at his defense and I'm just like, I just don't think it's the right thing, like as good as he is, even though he has very high ceiling. But also, there's a lot of people in the chat that are saying like he already said he doesn't want to go. I've seen conflicting reports. I've seen that he's been offered to us. I've seen that we're already discussing it. Like, I've seen different things, and I would imagine he doesn't want to leave because his whole life, all he wanted to do was play for Barcelona. But at the same time, they're desperate to sell players, and they already brought in Emerson, which kind of makes me believe that maybe if they're looking at Emerson, they brought him in, they want a different style of a right back. They don't want Sergio Dest type because they're not really similar. But George, for you, like, I know that you'd prefer Riddle Baku, but if we weren't to get Dest and this was the type of fullback that we're looking at, are there any other comparable right backs that you can think of that, maybe Arteta and Edu could go for?
I mean, so the difficulty is that the right back market right now is really so dry. I think, Adam our kind of resident, right back stats person. I had a recent retweet on my profile that kind of compares, Celik, Baku, and Sergino Dest. And what you can see with kind of Sergino Dest and Baku is they achieve very similar kind of non-penalty goals and assists expected, as well as key passes and shot creating actions. Again, by the way, Baku is actually better offensively than Sergino Dest, and that's actually routed not even just in the statistics, but it's also routed kind of in goal and assist outputs. This past season, he's achieved 15 goal and assists as opposed to kind of Dest's, I think, 4 goal and assist contributions. And so, but they achieve it in slightly different ways. So kind of what you would see is that actually both Raido Baku and Sergio Dest are in that overlapping profile, because what you find is that, Baku is very much like a right mid or a right winger in terms of how he receives the ball. And, Dest is very similar in the aspect where he's that overlapping fullback. And so the reason I kind of maybe prefer Baku over the other is I actually find better output and better offensive traits, which you wouldn't associate with Baku, but he does have them, over Sergino Dest. But he has that defensive competency, and he also has that added benefit of being an inverted right back if you wanted. He played kind of right center mid for Mainz kind of the season before. And not only that, he's achieved kind of the most successful sprints and pressures in the Bundesliga. So if you're looking at kind of a nippy, tight, fullback that has the same competency in tight spaces up top, but you don't sacrifice some of the defensive awareness issues you might have with Baku, then for me, you get the more complete fullback, and you also get the one that's more versatile. So the one thing I'll say with Dest, though, is if you're looking at an overlapping fullback, he's among the best in that profile. So I would be ecstatic, because I always wanted my right back to be overlapping. But what I worry about is when you select a player like that, you have to be committed to playing him in that way. And if you're at all questioning the potential ability to invert your right back in the future, don't buy that player, because they're very specific to a certain system and formation. And how Barcelona even play with Sergino Dest, it's similar. They play him really as a right winger in role. I mean, I know he lines up traditionally as a fullback, but he isn't asked maybe to progress with the same degree. And by the way, Baku does that too. They're both right wingers or right, kind of mids in role. And
what though? I hate to cut you off, but I worry. I hope Raido Baku never goes to somebody in the Premier League, because I don't think he'll survive it. I really don't think he'll survive it. He needs to come to us. You like this guy so much, like we're. I worry, George. I do, because if he were to go somewhere else, I don't think he'd survive it. But I get what you're saying. That Baku, I think he's more well-rounded. I think Dest is quite I think the equivalent to Dest, if you wanted to get something similar to that, is Lamptey. But my issues with Lamptey and Dest in particular is if something were to happen to their speed, that's it. And we don't want another Bellerin situation. Personally, I want to see an inverted right back. That's not Callum Chambers. I want to see somebody else. You guys, I like Tyler Adams. That's what I would go for, even though it's not really the right thing. I probably shouldn't be wanting this, but that's what Jess, I prefer.
Don't you think so? My one issue with these types of play. Look, I like Baku for my own little personal reasons, but one of the reasons I really like him again is it doesn't limit us to a specific formation. I find some of these other options do. I don't believe that Tyler Adams can be played as an overlapping fullback. If you do buy him, you're almost saying we are going to be playing with an inverted right back, full stop. If you buy maybe a Sergino Dest on the opposite angle, you're committing to an overlapping fullback type. And, I'm fine with either way. I don't care for names, but the big reason I suggest these players is because they're versatile, that you don't have to make that decision now. Same way I love an Awar. And when you look at some of these recommendations, they can play Sorry, I pronounced it weird.
George, get it right, buddy. Get it right. We're live on the internet. Get it right, buddy. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll do better. But if you get an Awu, for example, he can be kind of that pseudo 10 left wing or an interior 8, and you're not limited to that in the future. So that's the big thing. I want to get Swiss Army knife. I've talked about this in previous pods. I want to get Swiss Army knife players that can solve multiple problems on the pitch. I don't want to have to wait. Callum Chambers, sure. He can be a backup to Baku, who's a little bit better in that aspect. He's a little bit more nippy. But yes, look, I think Sergino Dest, just to make it clear, Sergino Dest is probably one of the top selections in that overlapping fullback role. I far prefer him over Max Aarons, over Celik. If you're going to get somebody that isn't the greatest defender at times, then get somebody that's elite and going to make the difference in the final third. And for me, Dest does that, and particularly with Thomas Partey in midfield, I find that he'll patrol that right half space quite well. So you're not really going to be caught out in that aspect because we have the midfielder to complement that type. It's just, again, for me, I would much rather pick the option that doesn't make me make a decision right now on future formations.
You know what's so funny about this is that we're talking about these great options, and I just feel like we're going to end up with somebody that we don't really know anything about or whatever. Like, I don't see us going after, like, as much as I would love to get Sergino Dest, I just don't see it, even though I'm sure we're interested. I don't see Baku, like, at all. I can totally see us getting that guy Carrere or Mulder, one of these guys, like, you know what I mean? It's going to be very interesting to see, what happens. But why not Max Aarons? I feel like we've really cooled on him. And like just a couple of months ago, it was Max Aarons, Max Aarons, Max Aarons, Max Aarons. Now it's kind of like it's really died down. I mean, do we not like him anymore? Harry, what do you think about?
No, I really like Max Aarons.
Sulz? What's happening?
It's just the way you said. Don't we like him anymore? Like,
I like him. I like Max Aarons. I think he's really good. But I suppose because Norwich have been promoted, maybe it's a case of he's willing to play there for one more year, and maybe the transfer talks die down because the move is no longer a possibility. I think it's also about understanding that whilst I totally back us to strengthen in many areas, I suppose also number 10 is important. Finding a new central midfielder is important for the board. So maybe it's about bracing ourselves to be disappointed in one area and have a feeling if it's going to be one area, it might be right back. Because whilst I jokingly say Callum Chambers, since he came in, I think it was two assists in 10 games. We kept four clean sheets in those 10 games. I know it was towards the end of the season, but I think he came in and done a decent job. And whilst we want to have amazing players in as many positions as possible, sometimes having a solid right back who is okay going forward, but who is decent enough defensively isn't such a bad thing. So I'm kind of bracing myself for us not signing a replacement for Bellerin or a world-class right back. I think it's something that we should certainly consider. But if the players aren't out there, then I have a feeling that we might hold off and just go with Chambers and Cedric, which
better than Cedric. No,
which I wouldn't
Chambers,
be too
yes.
sad about.
Cedric, no.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be too sad about Chambers. I do think if we sign, I know Chambers' first game was maybe Burnley in March, but I think if we looked at Chambers like a new signing and we forgot about the relegation and the previous failings, since he came in, he was a solid right back for us. A solid right back, good, decent going forward, obviously good in the air. So I wouldn't be against it, but maybe I'm just got too much of a small sample size.
You know what it is, Harry? It's not even just like the idea of Chambers, but it's this idea we have 4 right backs on the books. Like I keep telling people, even forgetting a Hector Bellerin sale, you have Cedric, Chambers, Ainsley Maitland-Niles. Like you cannot consider really a right back coming in until 2 have left, just purely for squad minutes.
In the under 23s just because.
Well, we have Brooke Norton-Cuffy, who's going to be coming up and is a star youngster in that position.
No. I mean, one of the 4 just dash them in the under 23s, just make space.
I'm with C. Wilder here. Ainsley, just accept it.
Yeah, man.
Just
it's too
accept
late, though.
it. Like,
It's too
come
late.
on.
Too late.
I would take Ainsley and Chambers and just drop Cedric off. Like,
Yeah,
It's
I
not too
thought I
late.
would wake up. I thought I was going to wake up feeling differently after that preseason game. I felt more strongly like Cedric is just not good enough. Like he's just not, like, and Chambers is way better than him in my opinion. Like I trust Chambers. Chambers is there because I know what his limits are. Like I know he's not very quick, but he seems to have like a good head like on him. Like he knows like if I go forward, like, I need to be able to get back and things like that. His service is better than Cedric. Like I never thought I'd say that. Chambers is better than Cedric.
I think
he just
Chambers is more intelligent. I said before, Cedric's probably got better ability in most areas, but I just don't. I said I don't think Cedric thinks the correct way for a fullback in our system. I think Chambers understands what he's good at, understands what he's bad at, so he doesn't leave himself exposed, especially to faster players. But either way, look, we're not talking about elite level right backs, but I think with Ainsley Maitland-Niles, just to go back, it's such a shame, but I suppose some players just want to be happy, and if he's happier playing centre midfield, and he just feels like he can express himself more, then I totally respect him for that, and I respect him for being almost stubborn and saying, no, I want to play centre midfield. But I'm sure he'll have to accept that it might be at a lower level, and then perhaps he can rise up. But it's such a shame, because you see someone like Lauren, who came to us many years ago as a right midfielder, I think it was, or a central midfielder. And I remember watching his first game at Highbury, and Lee Dixon was moaning at Lauren the whole game, like coaching him through it, telling him when to go forward, when to protect him and whatnot. And slowly but surely, Lauren took over from Lee Dixon and turned out to be a really, really solid right back. And it's a shame because Ainsley Maitland-Niles could be that kid because he's got all the attributes. He's good with his feet. He's fast. He's decent in the tackle for someone who isn't a particularly physical player. But obviously, he wants to play central midfield. So, have to move him on. But shout out to Ainsley Maitland-Niles anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's crazy. Okay, last thing before you guys we get out of here because I just have to show this. Like I just can't believe what I'm seeing. Oh my goodness! Hold on, let me share my screen. Is this really Bale on that game? You
What
guys.
is that?
Wait, what game is that?
Gareth Bale on PES 22.
Yo, just delete the game.
No way.
What is this?
Delete the game. Just forget about it. Burn it. What the?
This is like the first man.
Have you got the
Ever.
Arsenal players? Have you got
Caveman.
any of the Arsenal players up on there?
No, I mean I don't even. Do you even want to see an Arsenal player with them doing this to Gareth Bale? I mean, this is hilarious. Like
I can see it a little bit. I see a little bit. I don't know what I see, but I can't see.
Yo, if
I don't see anything. I see the first caveman.
yeah, I
with a
see the
top
first
knot.
man ever.
How in the world is this, Bale?
I don't get it.
It's crazy.
This is a Scandinavian cousin. That's what I'm convinced it is.
I wonder if they. Yeah, I mean,
They didn't even get the hair right. That's
yeah,
the
they
other
really
thing.
didn't. They didn't get any of it right. I mean, if you had just shown this to me, I wouldn't have said it was Gareth
They got
Bale.
the ears right. They are a bit out. He has got a bit of an outwards ear, so maybe a little bit out would have been better. But
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is crazy. I just saw it literally right now, and I was like, "What the hell is that?" Like that is so bad, but it's so funny because it's Gareth Bale. I don't even want to see what they've done to our players. I really don't.
Hairline on
really
point,
don't.
though. The hairline's okay.
Yeah, it's a
not
good
too-
hairline.
yeah, her hairline's all right.
Yeah.
It's not, but they did fade it out just a little bit because we all know.
They made the beard better than what the pictures are showing. It looks.
I mean, he's not.
It's more
That's
of a goatee,
pretty.
isn't it?
That's
This isn't
pretty-
him. Like it's just straight up.
You know,
is
it's
not
just
him.
not.
Actually, do you know what? If they made the face a bit fatter, not that he is fat, but just a bit wider, it might not be so far off. I just think they made the face a bit too skinny.
I think they've got the mouth. They've got the jaw right. It looks like his jaw. I'm confident.
His
in
neck
saying that's
looks
his
bigger
jaw.
than his head. It's just
Yeah,
really
he does have a
strange.
wide neck.
But
He
actually,
does
look
have-
at his pictures. His neck is huge.
It is.
So
It's like
You guys.
I don't know.
I'm sorry. I just saw it, and I'm just like, you guys. Like, this is so not him. Like, it's
I
just
hope Bale's not watching. I'm pretty sure. He won't be, but
But you know what? It's not. It's a bit off though. Like
It looks like the James Corden Beckham statue. You guys remember
it
that
does.
skit?
I did.
That's just
Yeah.
so bad. That's 100% what this is.
that was
Oh
good.
my goodness. Buff Bale before evolution. Yeah.
This is BC Bale. That's what it is.
Yeah, BC Bale. That's all right, you guys. I think we were serious for enough of the time, but I'm not even gonna lie. This was just tons of laughs. Like I laughed so hard on this one. Like I got one time. That'll never happen again. I'll never be caught out again. Ever.
I didn't swear, so it's been a good
Whoa, they
job.
got Messi accurate, fam. That's
Is it
a-
really? Send it to
Yeah,
me.
Oh, shit, I just googled it. Messi PES 2022.
Okay, hold on. Let me look at it.
Actually, is quite good, you know.
I want to see.
Is it perfect?
Like near it, yeah.
Aubameyang struggled, looking back at some of that hair return. What are your thoughts, Harry, on in terms of his return to hair? Because it's not been great. Have you seen some of those photos?
What's happening there? What's actually
there's a lot of spray work, isn't there? There's a lot of like stuff being used. I mean, I'm surprised he hasn't bitten the bullet and went for a hair transplant. I'm surprised, but I also respect it. But yeah, I think there will come a time when he has to decide what to do. Do you shave it off?
He's a weird one because in some pictures he looks good, like his hair looks fine, and then in some pictures you're like, what the is happened there?
He's the light switch of hairs. One time, you turn it on, it looks good. And
is that it?
It's the second one. I was looking at the second. I thought it was the second one. No.
This one?
That's not bad at all. That's good.
That looks good.
That does look good, yeah.
Fairly accurate. Someone put it in there, like, show Messi's PES 2022 looks unreal. I go,
yeah. That looks so good. It looks just like him. So why did they feel like that?
The Spurs player, innit? They didn't give a shit. It's a Spurs player to run out.
Yeah, they didn't care at all. Like
they're like, what's the next team? Spurs. Forget it. Well, whatever.
And you guys in our group chat, I sent you guys a picture of Aubameyang and Sulz. He said that I photoshopped it, or
that
it was
photoshopped, though, right? That was.
No,
Photoshopped.
it wasn't. It was real.
Yeah, it was. No way.
It was real. That's what he looks like now. I'm serious. I'm not putting it back up there because people will be like, you're being mean to Aubameyang. But it was real. It wasn't photoshopped. It was real. You guys.
That's what I mean. But his hairline is so weird. Like it's fine at times, and then it looks like what did you do?
I don't know what's going on, and I think Gabrielle is trying to.
He's lost it.
Gabriel's looks a bit like Judge Dredd. I don't know if anyone knows Judge
Gabriel's lost it.
Yeah, like it's pretty
really cutting back here.
But his veneers are on point, so that's all that matters.
His teeth are they're glowy.
His teeth are strong. A lot of the Brazilian footballers have some mad teeth, don't they? Like mad.
Well, Gabriel's fits like his face, but Williams are just a couple sizes too big.
Veneers are in Brazil. You can kind of tell.
Yeah, I think Firmino started it off right. They look like white extension leads, are just like in their mouth. It's just like white. But yeah, I mean, fair play to Gabriel though. He's looking white teeth.
We're gonna get out of here. We went off track. Yeah,
we've digressed.
But I mean, we talked about what we want to talk about. So make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow. I don't know if they'll be here, but I'll be back tomorrow to do a stream about whatever's happening in Arsenal world. I'm not quite sure. You guys know the drill. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.